Matter of fact, when I was a young kid, I will never forget this. My father had a saying, he always used to say it to me so many different times. And that was, what the mind can conceive, the body can achieve. What the mind can conceive, the body can achieve. And that's actually a quote out of the book, The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. You see, less than 10% of the people in the United States write down their measurable goals. Okay? Less than 10%. Now, goals are really the building blocks to success. And it's said that when you write down goals, you need to write down SMART goals. Okay? SMART goals. And SMART is an acronym. Okay? Just like we're using BIG as an acronym, SMART is an acronym. And for the S, we talk about writing specific goals. And when you write a specific goal, you're going to answer the questions, who, what, where, when, which, and why. We'll talk about the why more at the end. But an example of a non-specific goal would be, I'm going to lift more weight. Okay? An example of a specific goal would be, I'm going to bench press 275 pounds 5 times in the Freedom High School weight room by October 1st of this year. That's a specific goal. Okay? Now the M in SMART stands for measurable. Now see, you have to make a goal measurable. You have to set a way for you to track your progress. You have to know when you're going to accomplish your goal. If you put it out there without any way to measure it, how do you know when you've achieved it? So in the previous example, I said, instead of saying I want to lift more weight, I said I'm going to lift 275 pounds 5 times. That's measurable. You can track your progress. A month from now, you might be lifting 255. Okay? You're making progress towards your goal. The A stands for attainable. So when you set a goal and it's attainable, it's generally attainable when you can identify the goal that is most important to you. When you do that, you begin to figure out ways to accomplish it. Okay? You develop attitudes, skills, and abilities that are going to help you achieve that goal. And here's an interesting thing, or something about an attainable goal that I think is so great. And that is, goals that previously seemed to be out of reach, far away, will eventually move closer to you and become more attainable, not because your goals shrink, but because you grow and expand to meet them. By working hard to achieve those goals that previously seemed to be unattainable, move closer, become more attainable, if they're meaningful to you. An example of, let's say, an unattainable goal and a non-specific goal might be, I'm never going to get a penalty for the rest of the time I ever play football. That's really kind of hard to say, isn't it? I mean, how can you really set that as a goal? But I think an attainable goal might be, I'm not going to have a penalty in Friday night's game. You can focus on that. You can believe in that. You can be intentional about that and not have a penalty. I believe that's an attainable goal. And imagine if all 11 players on offense and all 11 players on defense set that as a goal, and we had a game with no penalties. The next R in SMART is for realistic. Okay? A goal is realistic if it represents an objective towards which you are both willing and able to work towards. Let me say that again. It's realistic if it's an objective that you are both willing and able to work towards. An example of a realistic goal might be, I'm going to catch 50 passes in the 10-game regular season this year. Okay? Now that's realistic. It's specific, measurable, it's attainable, and I believe that's realistic if you put your mind to it. Now, that's not to say that you have to catch 5 passes in each game, 10 games, 5 passes a game, 50 passes overall. But if you catch 2 in the first game, have you failed? No. You can catch 8 the next game, you're at 10 for 2 games, and you're right on track, right? Okay, but setting that as a realistic goal is something that you can work towards, and your mind is going to go to work on that. We talked with the receivers about setting a goal to catch every pass that's thrown your way. And the last thing in SMART is timely. You have to ground your goals in a time frame. If you don't ground it in a time frame, there's no motivation to achieve it, right? See, going back to the realistic for a moment, if the goal can be both high and realistic, right? If you have a goal that's high and realistic, it's going to exert high motivational force on you to achieve it. But if you set a low goal, it exerts low motivational force on you to achieve it. So when you're setting goals, it's important to make sure you're reaching out there a little bit, okay? If you set a goal that you know you're going to achieve, are you really that motivated to achieve it? Or are you just setting it to pat yourself on the back one day when it happens? Okay? Setting a goal to catch 50 passes in a season, which is something I don't think we've ever had a receiver in Freedom High School football do. Okay? That's a high goal. And that should exert high motivational force on you. And then we put it in a time frame of a season. Okay? So if you're a sophomore, we're not saying I'm going to catch 50 passes by the time I graduate. We're saying I'm going to catch 50 passes this season. Now that's got to motivate you, especially if you're at 39 with 1 game to play. Matt Malakane better be your, whoever else is the quarterback, better be your best friend, right? To catch 11. Okay, see, goals are set and achieved every day, but we don't often write them down and check them off. If you go to bed at night and you say, when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to brush my teeth before I go to school, that's a SMART goal. And your parents would probably agree. Okay? But it's a SMART goal. It meets all the criteria. Okay? But you don't write that down and post it, do you? You see, the most important thing about a goal, really though, is the why. And I mentioned it as one of the criteria for a goal to be specific. And that's the why. If a goal has a powerful why, that should be the driving force behind it. So for example, let's say I have each of you write down a goal, and I read them all, and 2 players in here say, I'm going to earn a full college scholarship to play football by the spring of my senior year. Now that's a SMART goal. I think that meets all the criteria we just explained. But now let's say that I go individually and I talk to each of those 2 players that wrote that same goal, and I say, tell me your why. And let's say player A says, well, I like to play football, and I think it'd be pretty cool to get a scholarship. Okay? And now I go over here to player B, and I say to player B, tell me why you wrote that goal. And he says, well, coach, I really want to go to college. I love the game of football. I'd love to play football in college. But I know the only way I'm going to college is if I get a full scholarship. My dad lost his job, and my parents told me there's no way they can afford to send me to college unless I get a full scholarship. Which of those two players do you think has the bigger why? Which of those two players do you think is going to go and lift weights 3 times a week in the off season? It's going to go out on his own and run miles on the road or go and run wind sprints to make sure that he's ready. He's going to stay after practice and do the extra little things, work on his steps, work on his technique to make sure that he's ready. You see, that's the player who has the bigger why. What's your why? Why are you out here? Why are you writing your goals? Why do you want to accomplish them? Let me tell you a story about a why. When I was in college, my college football coach, John Makovic, was a big goal guy, okay? And before the season, my freshman year, he called the team together for a team meeting, and he wanted to talk about goals for the season. And he came into that meeting and said, gentlemen, and we've been talking about goals. He said, today we're gonna identify the goals for our season this year. Now, let's put this in context. The year before I went to Wake Forest University, Wake Forest was 1-10. Okay? That year, we went to a bowl game. 1-10 bowl game. And I believe the whole reason that happened was because of the goals we set. You see, we went in that team meeting that day, and Coach said, start giving me some goals. And guys would raise their hands and say, throw for 300 yards in a game. Hold our opponent to 100 yards rushing. Beat the other 3 ACC teams in North Carolina, Duke, North Carolina State, and UNC. Win the ACC championship. Go to a bowl game. Wake Forest hadn't been to a bowl game since 1948. So that was a high goal, didn't you say? This was 1979, and we set our #1 goal that year was to go to a bowl game. So we had 10 goals that we identified, our top 10. Okay, and the top 1 was go to a bowl game. Every Monday after our game, we would have a team meeting. And they had taken those goals and written them on a plank. It was about this long, about this wide. Okay? And on that plank was the goal. And so we would have them all, and the coach we would review the game and see if we achieved any of those goals. And if we did, we would hang it on this framework. We had this framework, it was 2 2x4s with hooks on it. And the idea was we'd take those planks and we'd hang it. And each time we achieved one of those goals, we'd hang another plank. We called it our ladder of success. Okay? And throughout the season, every Monday when we reviewed our goals, if we threw for 300 yards, boom, that was on there. Okay? And it stayed on there. If we threw for 300 yards in another game, we just said, hey guys, we did this again. But we kept building. And we kept achieving goals. And by the end of the season, we'd achieved our ultimate goal of going to a bowl game. Now, did we accomplish every goal we set out to accomplish? The answer is no. But we accomplished enough of our goals, okay? We accomplished enough of our goals, the building blocks of success, to reach our ultimate goal. It's said by Jim Rohn, if you go to work on your goals will go to work on you. If you go to work on your goals will go to work on you. Or said another way, whatever good things we build end up building us.